Well, there's been some pretty huge news when it comes to the Mr. Pandaria beta because raid testing is about to start. So first of all, we've had it confirmed that we will be able to have template characters as of Thursday, I would presume, but the raids don't actually open or the raid testing doesn't start until Friday. This all doesn't come without concerns, and I've got a few of those, but we'll get into that in a second. Now, I've been saying over on stream at twitch.tv/Scottejaye87, and I'm laughing because I can't help but plug it. Come and say hello. And obviously kick.com/Scottejaye as well. But I've been saying over there that they've kind of just ripped the script up when it comes to Mr. Pandaria beta in comparison to any of the other classic betas we've had so far. Because with any of the other classic betas, if someone would have said to me that the raid testing is going to start this weekend, I would say absolutely no chance. And I would have been very wrong. But with this beta, they're just moving along really, really quickly. And you can kind of work out why. They said Cataclysm was going to be on an accelerated cadence. This week, we had the 25% nerf to Dragon Soul, so we've only got 2 weeks until it's at full potency, which kind of then means we're just coasting then through Dragon Soul, because even with the 25% this week, it really felt face roll. And I'm not saying it was difficult before, but this week it did feel incredibly easy. But yeah, they're absolutely cruising through this. Now, I said I've got concerns, and I have got concerns. When it comes to the beta at the moment, on Thursday, I would expect two things. A massive wave. So, I mean, more or less anybody who signed up getting in. Because if we're going to do raid testing, people are not going to want to be raid testing in pugs. They're going to want to be raid testing with their guilds. And out of our roster of about 20, 25 people that we've got for our 10-mans that we run, we've only got about 4 or 5 of us actually in the beta. So, firstly, I would imagine there's going to be huge amounts of invites going out on Thursday. Secondly, we desperately need a big old round of bug fixes before the raids open as well. Because glyphs, for example, every time you DC, which happens a lot because the world server likes to go offline, all your glyphs are removed, you have to put them back in. Dual spec's not working whatsoever. So when it comes to the weekend and we're actually raid testing, if you come against a boss where you want to use a third healer or you want your tank to go DPS, which on one tank fights obviously is going to be very common, the off tank's going to have to actually half-stone and go and respec and do all their bars again and all that jazz. It's not going to be fun. So I'm really hoping that these major glaring issues do get fixed before we actually step foot in the raid, or it's going to make it a very frustrating experience. Now, the crazy thing to me is the core systems of the game are not even working yet, or not even testable yet, and we're going into raids. So challenge modes are not testable yet. Pet battles are not in the game yet. Loads of classes are just not working as they should, so pet classes are completely scuffed. So for them to be confident enough to put the raids out this weekend, I'm really hoping that all of that stuff is added and fixed this Thursday. We'll see about that one though, I highly doubt it. Now, the reason I say they're ripping up the script when it comes to how they're handling this beta is if we go back to the Cataclysm beta. The Cataclysm beta went live on the 7th of March, and we didn't get the first raid tests until the 3rd of May, so that was almost 2 months. We're only about 3 weeks into the MoP beta, and we're already having a test weekend. Now, you might be thinking, well, it's obvious, they want to hurry up. Dragon Soul's nearly finished because we're on the 25% nerf, we're going to be on 30% in a couple of weeks, then we're coasting through. They're probably just going to want to get Dragon Soul out of the way and get us all into the Mr. Pandaria pre-patch. I do believe that, and I think that that's absolutely true, and I still predict that we'll have pre-patch next month. Yes, as early as next month. But the interesting thing is they don't need to rush these raid tests to get the pre-patch out, because back in Cataclysm, we didn't test any of Tier 11 until the pre-patch was already out. The pre-patch went live on the 30th of April, and the first raid tests were on the 3rd of May. So all of the raid testing took place while the pre-patch was already out. And I did complain about that because everyone wants to enjoy the pre-patch. No one wants to be sat on the beta doing raid testing when there's plenty of stuff to do during the pre-patch. So I do think that they probably realised that was a little bit of an issue. So this time round they're trying to make sure that the raid testing and the pre-patch don't clash, at least don't clash too much. Now, what you've got to remember here is this is only one raid. Mogasham Vaults is only one of 3. There's then Terrace of Endless Springs and Heart of Fear. Should have probably said that the other way round. It's actually Heart of Fear and Terrace of Endless Springs, but whatever. Now, Mogasham Vaults has only got 6 bosses, so I'm kind of surprised that this has just launched on its own with its own round of tests. But what I would expect is throughout June to be testing Heart of Fear and Terrace. Now, there's multiple ways that the raids can actually launch. The way they launched originally was just Mogasham Vaults on its own, and then Heart of Fear and Terrace. So they could easily just be testing Mogasham Vaults because that's going to be the only raid that's going to be available shortly after launch. And then they actually test Heart of Fear and Terrace a couple of weeks into Mogasham Vaults, so actually while Mr. Pandaria's live. So they might not even be thinking about Heart of Fear and Terrace. Now, before you start raging in the comments, I do think that's incredibly unlikely. I fully expect us to have a test weekend of Heart of Fear and Terrace together, probably second week of June, around that. So this weekend, we've got Moggosh and Volks round 1. At the end of May, we've got Moggosh and Volks round 2. Then there'd be the first week of June where nothing's going on, and then the second week of June would be Heart of Fear and Terrace. Maybe they even throw in one more week of that, and that might overlap with a pre-patch, because I do really think that we're likely to see a pre-patch by the end of June, absolute latest. Even if you was to ignore everything I've said in the past about how I think pre-patch and actual launch is going to happen, and just base it on how fast we're moving through the beta, I really don't think they want us with the 30% nerf in Dragon Soul all that long. 2 to 3 weeks, in my opinion, absolute maximum. And then if we just go back to Cataclysm again, the second round of raid tests was on the 14th of May, the launch test was on the 17th of May, and then the actual launch was on the 20th of May. So 3 days before Cataclysm launched, not the pre-patch, the actual launch of the whole game, we was doing raid testing. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we do get the pre-patch fairly soon, and then towards the back end of the pre-patch we are doing a bit of Heart of Fear and Terrace testing before MoP actually launches. That's my gut feeling anyway, and that's what I'm going with. Now, they're doing something quite interesting as well. On May the 22nd, they're going to be doing a test PvP season. So I'm guessing that test PvP season's only going to last a couple of weeks, or maybe it goes until the end of the beta, so when the beta gets closed down completely. But you see how much is happening in May. It's not just the raid testing in May, it's the PvP system in May. I'd hazard a guess that this week's update will bring pet battles, and I reckon that week between Moggosh and Volts, so where we've got raid test 1 this week, and then we've got next week with nothing, I reckon next week will probably be challenge modes. Unless they throw all their inhibitions to the wind and they launch challenge modes at the same time as everything else, this reset, maybe. But I will keep you updated with that anyway. So overall, I think everything's moving along really nicely. Definitely keep an eye on your Battle.net launcher over the next couple of days because, like I say, with raid tests at the weekend, I would expect the floodgates just to open, basically, and more or less everybody get in, which they really need to do. Because even trying to get dungeons done at the moment, like, no one's interested. Everyone's now just waiting for the template characters, getting into the raids and doing, the important testing. So I'm mega excited, and if you want to come and see the raid, I'm going to be raiding 10-man specifically all weekend, Friday till Sunday. So I'll see you there, hopefully. Twitch.tv/Scottejaye87 and kick.com/Scottejaye. Be sure to like and subscribe. Consider joining the channel as a member if you want to show extra support, and I'll see you on the next one.